And regarding questions, so I'm going to just pop one. So you got a lot of questions. So let's see if we will be able to
Hmm.
cover.
Yeah.
I will invite Ajit to the stage. Hi, Ajit. Welcome back.
Hello,
And
hi,
Hello.
Rohan.
hi.
Hi, everybody. Okay, so as I said, ladies first. So one of the questions from Darth Looper was, how can these 6 steps that you just showed be broken down into more concise and precise requests to ensure results accuracy?
Yeah, it's a very, very big question. I think it's a very open question because, like, in my imagination, it could be a lot of questions. For example, the first step is anyway asking the challenges and the questions about the city problems or the architectural problems, challenges. So it can be a lot of things. Also, the use cases can be on different engineering areas. It could be acoustics, it could be lighting design, it could be also in the more city perspective, it could be about waste management, energy efficiency. So it could be up to the challenge actually, it could be much more detailed. And if you look at the algorithms, I'm pretty sure that we have like amazing amount of algorithms that we didn't discover yet how to use in which area of the architecture. So I think every those 6 steps can be really open up to more and more questions. But sure, we are the university, so we are asking these questions. We are opening new questions. So I think the just this question could be a new research project. To be honest.
And I guess it's going to be okay. So I have another super broad question
Yeah.
now to just add to that. And this is going to be really the question to all three of you. Um, and the big question is, which I think is usually at the top of the mind for everyone, what is the future of prompt engineering? And I will pack it also with a couple of questions that we got. So we there was a question to for Ajit to a little bit more elaborate on autonomous agents. And I
Hmm.
will pack this one together with a question about prompt engineering trends and also security. So just, this is a lot to cover, but I think it really speaks to the point, what is the future and what are the trends there. So Ajit, maybe you would like to kick this off, and Rohan would love to have your, input to add.
Sure. Thank you for the question. And I think that I was listening to Dr. Ayse's presentation as well, and there are some aspects of that already talk to some of the future of prompt engineering. So, for example, we are looking at things where you can use prompts to generate whole virtual worlds. Correct. So it's like you use a prompt and say that you create ecosystems and they kind of interact with that. And in many ways, the autonomous AI agent idea is taking the idea of prompt engineering to a higher level of abstraction. So, for example, I want to say that I want to book a holiday to Greece, but I don't want to tell it the sub steps of doing that. So what the prompt then does is effectively break it down into sub steps and try to execute each of those sub steps and then try to provide you a solution overall. There are a number of solutions to this. I mean, if you look at, sorry, number of people researching this idea. And if you look at autonomous AI agents, you'll find a whole bunch of research papers and things like that. So this for me is the future of prompt engineering, that it then goes to the higher level of abstraction of problem solving, where you entrust AI to do to solve a complex problem. Now, of course, you can come back with a lot of questions about this, correct? So how do you trust the output? To what extent can you allow it to autonomously execute something? And I was presenting some ideas at the European Parliament yesterday, and I presented the same idea. And I think that this creates some questions in the minds of people. To what extent are we delegating our responsibility to an agent? But this is how I see the future, and I think that is why I was sort of interested in, because we also have a, a s- a course on AI with digital twins, which also touches on some of the presentations which were in the last from Dr. Aish with that. So that's how I see the future in that.
Thank you so much. Any of you want to jump in and add your perspective?
So, yeah, hi, Goda. I
Hi.
just want to add like one more direction of prompt engineering. One of the very interesting aspect that I look for. So currently, we like I'm coming from like a background of recommendation system, and there were like lots of questions that like how we can utilize LLM as a recommendation system. One of the interesting aspect of using LLM, uh, can we like generate user intent prompt. And what do I mean by user intent prompt? Currently, if you see like all the economy, it is like creator based economy. What Netflix build for you, like what Netflix create a movie for you, you consume it, right? What YouTube like create for you, you consume it. So what we have the inventory, that is the only thing we can recommend. But what if like tomorrow, if we can gather information from a user perspective, right? That user wants to see like this kind of movie. Like suppose someone wants to see uh, uh, a next season of Breaking Bad, and if we are getting like that kind of like demand from user, can our LLM system generate that that poster for user, right? And we can like surface that poster to user and predict the demand of that particular content, and based on that we can tell our creator that yeah, this is our user wants, and can you create like this content for the users. So this is like a new aspect which can be like integrated, where right now it's a like creator based economy, but can we make like consumer based economy where like consumer user intention prompt can help us to generate like content and recommend content.
Thank you so much for this perspective. Like the whole time I'm kind of thinking Black Mirror episode, when the content is literally generated for each of us and what future that holds. Ayse, anything you would like to kind of add to this?
Yeah, I think for the future, if I add from the part of the designer look, I think right now we have a new tool. I think it's a very exciting tool that we can control or interact through the prompts, which can actually make our everyday life items or our living spaces more smarter. So we are not really getting smarter, but the things maybe will get smarter through the prompts and through this interaction. For example, what we designed before, like a chair, like let's say 40 to 40, 50 to 50 centimeters for one person, but we have smaller persons, bigger persons. So now I think we can design chairs which can understand the size of the person who is sitting on, so it can get smaller and bigger. So we will, I think, have a lot of new designs, and we will control our own items, I think, through that prompt engineering. And I'm really looking forward what will come.
This is fantastic. I saw, I probably can't pull it from my head, but I know it was in Denmark that there was first modular sofa designed, and the hoops and loops they went through, that it's a sofa you just pack like IKEA and you can carry it. And it was done by AI and very smart prompting and bunch of experiments. So now a little bit about prompting. So I'm going to drop in a chat for everyone something what Rohan just shared with me regarding hallucinations. So I saw it was also like one of the kind of underlying in comments, with when we talk about personalization, we talk about buildings, we talk, any system which kind of starts understanding us and especially also biases, on societal level. I would like to really bounce this to all three of you. Anything that you've seen working regarding hallucinations, or maybe any perspective that you would think that people should maybe have an alternative look into this. Let's start with Ajit again, if it's okay with everyone.
Sure. So thank you for that. So I think that like I shared in my presentation, we spent a lot of time in mitigation patterns, correct? So what the mitigation patterns are exactly to overcome this idea of hallucination. Now, I don't like the word hallucination. To my mind, actually, the word hallucination is the actual advantage of AI, generative AI. I mean this very specifically. So for that, if you are working with an artist, if you are working with a creator, they do have a tendency to go off track and do different things and things like this. And this is the part of the creative process, correct? If we kill that, then we get something very, very, very boring, so to speak. Yes. So I mean, this is where I think that we should appreciate the ability of generative AI to actually hallucinate, and use that as one of the main USPs of generative AI. Because if you take it to the other extreme level, then you are getting to a rule based system, correct, in which you have to pre-program every possible scenario, and that's not useful at all. So in my mind, it's two things. First of all, we need to accept that there is hallucination from generative AI, and that it's adds value. And the second thing is that we need to build our own mitigation patterns, as we talked about in our strategy, and they are very technical to my work, correct? So I mean, Dr. Ayse would have a different set of mitigation ideas. And this is the classic thing when you see all those examples of five-legged horses, for example, correct? I mean, you see this on generative AI all the time, that it does mistakes which you wouldn't expect humans to do. But it is fine once you accept that it is work in progress, it is not the final output. Then it's an attitude change from our side.
Yeah, thank you so much for this answer. I was just recently saw a post where someone thought that hacking, custom instructions on ChatGPT by saying, "Hey, rate my response on the accuracy," that solves hallucinations. So just like let's leave it at that. But yeah, we need a little bit more than that, and that leads also to some hallucinations. Rohan, so you shared this resource, and I dropped it in the chat. Um, Specifically with the user personalization, um, anything like from your perspective, like you would like to touch on hallucinations, but also specifically for your session, I saw quite a lot of comments about user data privacy. So anything you want to dive into that, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gota. So yeah, I completely agree, and that's why my most of the presentation was like fairness, ethics, and responsible AI. Uh, so first, like we talk about hallucination. I completely agree. Right, these systems do generate hallucination, and as uh, Dr. Joskar say that we there is a only certain extent we can mitigate hallucination. I think one of the important tool we have to mitigate hallucination is human, right? So we keep like human experts in the system, and we don't want to remove them. So that can help us a lot. You previously talked about Black Mirror, which is some sort of give like a negative image to like a LLM based recommendation system, but some of the positive image I want to like the field I work in, like mental health, right, where there is a, especially if we talk about like LMIC country, like low median income country, where people don't have like, access to mental health, like they don't have access properly to like general health, like just forget about mental health. And if the we can generate like a curated content or a curated test program for those users where we don't have like proper resources there, and those like generated resources can be vet by these experts, that can reduce way large amount of like burden on our like existing resources and assessing experts. So we can actually use our expert knowledge to mitigate the hallucination. That is the first thing. And definitely when we talk about like privacy, like user privacy and biases, that is like extremely important when we work in like this sensitive field called mental health, right? So we want to make sure that like the LLM models which we are using are fine tuned. They run in like some sort of isolations, and the data we are feeding is like completely anonymized and like cannot be like identified that easily. So we when we try to build a system, like we want to make sure that our system has only knowledge what it is required to answer the user, and it should not like trained on that information which can identify some users like personal information. So that's why like we focus more on like building in-house model and like fine tuning, like not using like all the like open source or like open models like chat gpt. And if we use it, like make sure that we test it very properly before deploying it. So I think those are the things we can take care of, like obviously like not sharing like user personal information, using some kind of like encryption methods and like de-identification method to hide like all those sensitive information. And obviously for the hallucination, always like get it checked by like a expert human, so we can make sure that our system is not hallucinating the content.
Yeah, thank you so much. Um, Before I ask Dr. Glass, so I will just throw a question, but then I will bounce to Rohan. I'm very curious, to hear from you in a second about what do you see architects? How do they react to AI coming? Because I know, like from experience, architects are a little bit slow with adopting newest technologies. I remember in university playing with guns. But yeah, just what you are seeing in the field, or maybe just if you could touch on that, how the landscape is looking.
Are you asking to me? It
Yes,
was cut.
sorry.
That's why I didn't hear the beginning of the question. Sorry.
Oh, okay. So the question is really what you are seeing in the field, like how architects or designers or urban landscape designers adapting AI. And this is also in general. The following question I will want to ask all of you is really how is professional landscape looking? Do really prompt engineers get 350K a year like what Anthropic advertised? So before we get to that, personally very curious, how is adoption in a design and architecture community?
What I see in Hamburg, for example, around the university and also around the industrial partners, actually the adoption was very, very fast. It was super fast than I thought. Like when we started to teach about the prompts and the generated images, it was I think like last year, in the beginning of last year. So we were writing the code, what we want as a what we want to see on the prompt, and that was the first touch from the architects that opens the code and just write the sentence. So I think also in between this digital world and the design world is through the prompts, I think coming more closer, because a lot of architects or designers actually wanted to learn a lot about the coding or the background of the programs that you use, like Grasshopper, I don't know, other 3D Max, a lot of Revit, a lot of
I
architecture
remember
programs
those.
are written by computer scientists or programmers. So architects also wanted to know, because the more that you knew about the code, you could also enhance your design in a way that you can also modify through the code and the computation. So I think with the prompt engineering, it's much more clear to someone that has no idea about coding. Then you can ask ChatGPT about the code. What does it mean in this code? Can you generate me more? Or in other code generators. So I think it will be much more used actually during the architects. For sure, it is. I don't know. Right now, the discussion is a lot about also the energy efficiency and for the green technologies. So designers are really taking care of this. Like if generating is what causes us generating actually for the environment and for everyone. So that is a discussion going on. But otherwise, the prompting and what prompt engineering can actually provide to architects is, I think, awesome.
Yeah, actually, to your point, I'm just pulling out actually one of the first comments which popped that 2 days ago, The Verge reported Google is trying to add AI to their search engine, but it could take as much electricity as Ireland. What kind of job security can we expect in the face of this as prompt engineers? So I think this is going to be the transition to the question I popped before, like, where do you see this, like if folks want to get into this space and actually land a job, um, what should they do, where do they start, and what is actually the security going forward with this type of path?
All right, let me answer that again
Sure.
first. Yes. So I think that many cases people look at it as one thing, correct? So for example, when I look at what was an anthropic, I'm sure it is much more than just creating the prompt, because it
Yes.
really requires you to understand the ecosystem behind that. Which brings me to the same question, that if I were to do what Dr. Ayse is trying to do, I wouldn't be very successful at that because I do not know her domain, and vice versa. And I think that this is very important to understand where your knowledge is important. But sorry, can you recap your question again, what you were asking exactly? uh,
Yeah,
uh,
so yeah, the people were asking, there was like
oh
multiple
yes.
questions regarding that.
Yeah,
So basically, like this path as a career, like what is the
yeah,
security? And I think the question regarding electricity.
yeah,
mm,
yeah, that's right. That's why I was trying to look into that. Now let me address that question regarding electricity. And I think that people look at it from a monolithic perspective. They look at large language models, correct? There's a
mhm,
certain amount of research which says that that actually might diverge in the future. So if you look at something from like llama 2 from Meta or Facebook, correct?
correct.
The significance of llama 2 is that it is actually in three flavors, that is large, medium, small. So that means you don't need, you can have a small model running inside your own firewall, and can do a more focused GPT type result. Now, obviously, it's not a large language model, meaning it won't do everything, but it might be well good enough for your purpose. Now, if you contrast that, in the early days you had Bloomberg GPT, correct? So obviously, if you're Bloomberg, if you have got a lot of money and if you've got a lot of data, you can do this, you can create your own Bloomberg GPT. But I think that that strategy now may not be what other people will take. They will look at other ways of sort of building a smaller, like if you look at RAG, correct? Retrieval augmented generation. If you look at those sort of stuff, I appreciate that they're not prompt engineering, correct? So they're not strictly prompt engineering, but in my mind, the whole ecosystem is a part of that. So if you go for RAG, if you go for something else, you are then augmenting that LLM with something else, with your own data, and that might be well the way to go. And then you have prompt engineering on top of it. So some of these problems, they make the headlines, but there are solutions to them. This is my conclusion.
Okay, thank you so much. We are just momentarily going into coffee break. I think everybody just needs to debrief. But Rohan, I just want to very, very quickly get your 2 points really on this question, what you're seeing, and also headspace. You know, as a company embracing prompt engineering.
Yeah, that's I completely agree with Dr. Joker that obviously there are various specific, like not every company is Google first. Like they are like 1% of the company that utilize this amount of, and obviously they are making lots of effort to make it like carbon neutral using lots of like renewable energy, but that's a different talk together. If we talk about like specific industry like headspace, right? We see like there is a huge shortage of like expert who to address like mental health. And mental health like is obviously healthcare in the United States is not something like everybody can afford, right? And it should be a right, not a privilege. And if we can have like a some kind of system that can help us, that can help us to provide some kind of expert guidance, or like generate some kind of content that can be broadcast to large, and that can be scaled to large amount of user, that should be definitely done. And what we are offsetting here, like we are offsetting like obviously like lots of other costs that are associated with like lots of administrative costs that comes into the picture when someone wants like certain kind of healthcare, or someone wants to like visit to a doctor or something like that. So there are like lots, like obviously in the one space we having like these large language model, especially during the training, we spend lots of energy in it, but obviously in the fine tuning we do not require that amount of energy. And over the time, if you see the amortized cost of it, like it will reduce over the time.
Yeah.
Like we don't want to like train from scratch every day, and we will be utilizing user knowledge and user feedback to improve this system. So I think that on the longer run, these system definitely can help us a lot to reduce overall cost. And obviously like we don't need like large language model for every application. Maybe medium or small scale model also can help for specific applications. Yeah.
Exactly.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much. Thank you so much, all three of you. This was really fascinating, insightful, and I can't wait to delve into each of your content and maybe some courses. Who knows? So now we're going to go into the break. I need coffee. I guess listeners also need to get ready for a couple more hours of content. So again, thank you so much,
Thank you.
and bye bye.
Thank you. So I'm going to log off now from the
Yes.
system. Yes, thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much.
Have a nice day.
Okay.